Sure. Get jumping on with you. Start rocking
All right, 7 o'clock time now for City Council work session. I'll have City Council meeting at 7:30. Let's go to the podium and Mayor Bob Manetza.
Welcome everyone to this special City Council work session for December 2nd, 2019. Linda, would you please call the roll?
Cummins.
Here.
Scott.
Here.
Fritz.
Here.
Manetza.
Here. First item of business is a presentation from Derek Gatos on the Lake Avenue retaining wall replacement.
Good evening, Your Honor, council members. So this is a new project that's coming to you. You probably haven't heard much, if anything, but we got a bunch of retaining walls around town, and they tend to fail at times when we least expect. The Lake Avenue retaining wall, everybody probably is thinking the great big new one we have. It's not that one. This is the one that's right adjacent to the Cardoma Lodge. And you don't see it because actually the road, the wall is holding up the road, if you will. So it's down to the north side of the road, and really the view of the wall is done by those that are in or attend in the lodge itself. So in the earlier this year, we got approached by the builder. I did in expectation of like, hey, when's the city going to replace this wall? So, well, I don't think the wall is ours. I think it's yours, and yeah, it's in the road right of way, but we don't believe it's ours. Well, it's continued to fail this year, and you know, there is some risk as far as you know, the road and the edge of the road, if you will, falling off that edge. It's only about 4 or 5 feet tall. So we had our engineers out there looking at it and say, yep, it's in need. It's not something we budgeted for. But can you tell us, like, who benefits from this? Who built this wall? I mean, is there any type of engineering that you could tell us, yeah, it's doing this or it's doing that? And they came back with us that unfortunately it's the chicken or the egg. We don't really know. We only assume. So we think that our suggestion is the a couple pictures there. A couple suggestion would be that you both split equally the responsibility of that. It is holding up the road. It's also widening out or giving the benefit to the property owner there for having a little more land instead of a natural slope that probably was there. So it's mitigating those issues. As you can see in this picture here at the top, the top 2 blocks are literally split and ready to fall off the top. You can see that. Mm-hmm. Right at the top there. There are some private structures on top of the wall, like the fence and some electrical. So we'll have to mitigate that. As you can see in this picture, actually, there's a street sign that is extended of about 8 feet. So it's a normal street sign, and then extended up. And there's another couple pictures where you can see that wall's leaning.
So how far from the edge of the right-of-way is that wall?
It's best we can tell is probably 6 feet inside the road right-of-way.
So if that were just replaced with an embankment, it would be a very steep one.
It would be a very steep one, and it would probably have to be even a one-on-one 45-degree slope would then embankment would continue onto the private property. We'd have to get rid of the entire shoulder 100% in order to do that. You know, the guests at the lodge actually do use a shoulder. There's a little bit of fencing that comes up there, and there's where the gate is at to enter the lodge. Yeah, so 19th century, it's probably been there over 100 years. I've actually seen pictures of this, photographs of this area with that wall there dating back to 1930. So it's been there a while. It's lasted its lifetime. So since we can't determine exactly who owns it, equaling benefiting parties, the recommendation would be to replace it. Now this is where I found a difference in the information that I had on hand. the $60,000 cost that I received is not for that Ready Rock wall. That would have been about $140,000 to do that. So this is actually for just a plain concrete reinforced wall, similar to what was there, not the Ready Rock. So I made a mistake on that. But share the cost with the property owner 50-50. And we have asked if whether the property owner was inclined to do so, and they've responded that they would, and then work together with those other encroachment items, the fence and some of the lighting. I don't think we need to mitigate all that and get rid of it. You know, with this wall, they could put it back. I think it works. And they were actually even talking about maybe expanding on their own property, some of those encroachments. So a better walkway, if you will. I don't know any of the details of that yet, but we would work with them on that. So yeah, so where do we get this? We don't have any budgeted, anything budgeted. The city we do have $55,000 budgeted for another retaining wall that we could put off a year. It is failing, and we'd like to replace it, but this one's in much more critical condition. So if the city were to partner with the property owner and spend approximately $30,000, we have $55,000 budgeted for the wall that's down on the Bicentennial Park, right by the Riverview Shops. If you recall, those wooden posts are all rotted. We were gonna, one of the projects this fiscal year was to replace that with a decent retaining wall. So if we put that project off at least till after July 1st, probably more like after Coast Guard, and we stuck the money into this wall, I think it would be the right move. So as a work session item, come to you and see what your opinion is. Again, it's not a budgeted item. We want to move some money around to get this done in the spring of 2020.
Okay. Any thoughts?
I think it's a pretty fair deal that we split it 50-50 with them. I really don't have a problem doing that. And I think we're going to have more retaining walls too. If you look across the street at Lover's Lane, that one's failing too. So this is going to be an ongoing problem for a little while, I think. So, but as far as the 50-50 split, I don't have a problem with that. I think that's a good alternative than try to fight with the property owner and back and forth. Have you checked with the property owner yet, Derek? Is a 50-50 split okay with them? Yeah,
and I haven't talked to Matt Maloney personally, but his attorney and builder, who I've been communicating through, and I did get an indication that he agreed to that.
Okay, all right, I'm okay with it.
Then we're going to do Bicentennial Park after the fiscal year is done. Get onto that one, right?
Yeah, we'll put it back in the budget for the next fiscal year, which would start July 1st.
Because that wall is definitely getting there too, but you're right, this one here is a bit more important. It's holding the road up.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty well important compared to a walkway, in that it's not really falling apart that bad yet. It's still bad.
Yeah.
So we just shift one priority over to another one, which is a little bit hotter, so this is a good idea.
Any thoughts, Ryan?
No, I agree with that. Not clear who constructed it originally. It's certainly in and benefiting the right of way by holding up the road, and so I'm agreeable to a 50-50 split as well.
Yeah, and I agree. This wall is not optional. We can't do without it.
Yeah.
It does serve a public purpose. It also serves a private purpose, so if they're willing to split 50-50, sounds like a good deal.
Good. Okay, well, I will we'll prepare that those agreements and engineering proposals and get moving for spring construction.
Okay, thanks. Next on our agenda is Jeff Hawk presenting on fire apparatus replacement plan.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Got a couple of different things I want to talk to you about tonight. Start out with
That's the strangest looking fire apparatus.
That doesn't look like fire apparatus.
That's the siren.
Ah, okay.
That's the new siren?
I think I got it out of, I think I went out of order. I was put the shortest thing first, and then we'll go into fire apparatus. And I just wanted to mention upcoming events for Officer Scott Flahive, our officer that was killed in line of duty in 1994. for the 25th anniversary on December 13th. We have a few things happening that I'd like to inform you about. But first, wanted to talk about Chapter 7 of our city ordinance about keeping animals. And this chapter dictates how we handle barking dog complaints. The mayor was approached by a resident who had encountered a situation where there was a chronic barking dog. And under our current ordinance, we're limited to taking enforcement action unless there are two separate complaints from two separate households in the vicinity of the problem. And I'll read you exactly what our ordinance says. The end of it, provided that any complaint on this fact shall be made by not less than two persons in two separate households in the vicinity of where the dog is kept. I'm assuming that was probably adopted at some point to prevent possibly neighbor retribution or civil disputes back and forth using it as a tool or something. Not really sure. But it does limit our ability to take enforcement action. In our ordinance, the penalty for harboring a barking dog is a 4-tier penalty. It's a civil infraction. It starts out as a civil infraction. It goes from 50 to 150 to 300 for offenses 1 through 3, and then on the 4th offense it goes up to a misdemeanor, and then it's punishable as a misdemeanor. So there is an escalating a level of enforcement action and for each subsequent offense. And had the city attorney take a look at it, drafted some different language which eliminates that two-person complaint so that we can more effectively deal with it when it happens on a case-by-case basis. And the two complaint requirement is eliminated, and the end of the new language indicates discomfort to neighbors or others in the vicinity where kept. So what this would change, if you choose to change it, I think it would give our officers more latitude in dealing with the complaints, more ability to take enforcement action if they deem that it was necessary. With a lot of confidence in the discretion of our officers to solve these problems, but sometimes we do need to take enforcement action, and we don't always get the two complaints. In fact, very seldom we get the two complaints. And a lot of people are hesitant to complain about their neighbors for good reason. I mean, you know, everybody wants to be a good neighbor, but sometimes when we get those chronic cases, eliminating the two complaint language would be beneficial for enforcement and for problem solving. In 18, we responded to 25 barking dog complaints, so we're getting about 2 a month. We're at 22 year to date. In 19 so far, no tickets have been issued in either year, primarily because I'm assuming of the two two complaints being necessary for enforcement action. So that's going to be on the agenda next meeting for you to consider if you want to chew on that a little bit in the interim and give that some thought. The city attorney drafted up the ordinance should you choose to want to make that change. Hey, glad to answer any questions on that.
All right. And the reason that I brought this forward, I was surprised to learn from first the encounter and then subsequent questions I asked that even if one person complains and offers a response and the officer hears the dog barking, he cannot be another complainant. So you need another person to call from another house before he could even go and give a warning or do anything at all. And so that's why I thought this needed another look. That seemed like, whether it started out with feuding neighbors or whatever the genesis of this was, it seemed like a very high threshold to hit. So
it is a high threshold, and if it's generating discussion in the community, it's definitely a good time to take a look at it and possibly make this change. So that'll be on the agenda for you next time. And then we'll move on to the fire apparatus replacement. Council, our fire apparatus represents a significant investment for the community. The equipment's very costly, and it's very costly to purchase and replace, as you know. We are very fortunate to have in place a fire apparatus replacement fund that is budgeted with your guidance for a savings plan every year. So for the past as many years as I've been here and beyond that, we've been putting in $50,000 a year to replace fire trucks because they are very costly, and it's not something that we want to get to a point where we need to replace one and then try to figure out where we're going to get the money. So, boy, it's awesome that we have those funds available and that we can pay cash when we need to replace one. That's the optimum thing. There's a lot of communities that do millages, sell bonds, do loans through USDA, low interest loans, do internal loans between funds. Been party to all that in the past, and the bad part about that is the interest. So it's great to pay cash, just like with the private automobile, whenever you can. This picture right here is from 1983. I wanted to draw your attention to that middle truck there with the red arrow. That's the truck that we're proposing replacement right now. That truck would have been a year old in 1983. It's a 1982. And I wanted to start off talking about that truck and some things we did 5 years ago to set in motion the plan that we're on right now. So in 2014, you authorized about a $30,000, $35,000 expenditure to refurb our 1980, it's actually an 82 Ford that was refurbished. And that's a list of all the work that we did to it. And our plan at that time was we wanted to get 5 more years out of it and keep it in good operating condition for 5 more years. But back in 14, it was at a point where it needed body work, it needed interior work, needed to upgrade the emergency lighting, and some of the other parts and pieces, tools. And we did all that in 2014, and we've been using it ever since as a refurbished piece of equipment. And it's reached 30-some years old now, and we had it down at Waterball over the summer, and it overheated and kind of let us down a little bit, and those are the type of things that are kind of starting to go on with it now. It's still serviceable, still runs, pump is still strong, but realistically, it's time to move that along in whatever form we decide to move it along in. I'm not sure where it's going, but assume that council would like to have some input on that when it comes time to do that. But realistically, it's time to move that one along and replace it. So our plan and strategy right now is we got that one, we got 5 more years out of that truck with the intention of buying a new one around this time and moving our current frontline pumper into a reserve. So if you go to the next slide there, Ash. So this is what we own right now. The 82 Ford is scheduled for replacement in 2020. Which is this coming year. We own the 2004 Sutphen 100-foot aerial platform, anticipating to replace that truck in 2029. And one thing to consider between now and 2029 is what kind of refurb options the manufacturer might offer, or what we might be able to do to extend the life of that truck another 5 years. Or whatever is recommended at that time. It's in good shape right now. We just put some money into it to fix the hydraulics, rebuild some cylinders, fix the carousel. So that is, that is a very expensive insurance policy. We hope that we never have to use it, but when we do use it, when the ladder goes up, we really, really need it. And it's been a couple of those over the past several years. North Shore Marina fire, Seaver Manufacturing, a couple of residential fires, mutual aid in Spring Lake, Grand Haven Township, where we've needed that elevated stream or that platform to move people. So that one would be ideally around 2029. We've got the 2007 Alexis, that's our current frontline pumper, and with moving that one into a reserve role, the hours go way down, the miles go way down, the use and abuse on the engine and pump goes way down. So that one will see less action, which will extend the life of that truck. Frontline pumper between 15 and 20 years, probably on average. We're hoping that when it goes into a reserve role, we can get 25 or more out of it like we did with the 82. And then we're proposing the purchase, which has been out to bid, and the bids just came back, just opened the bids last Wednesday, a new engine and pumper, and that won't be replaced. If you choose to approve it, it would be replaced approximately 2045 and at some point it would go into a reserve role as well. And that's kind of in my mind, what I'm proposing as the apparatus replacement plan. We like to have spacing in those purchases because they are so large. And we want to have time to save up and have the money in the bank, if possible, when it's time to buy a fire truck. That's the optimum way to do it. So that's kind of the layout of where we're at right now and where we're at with our oldest truck, the 1982 Ford. To replace it, we put together a committee of some very knowledgeable people and went through a very thorough process. Clint Holt chaired the committee. We had Terry Turkelson, Kurt Dilley, Matt Dilley, James Kibart, Mike Van Hook, and Marcus Litisis, all on the committee. And their charge was to figure out what we need and then meet with the manufacturers and develop some base specifications. And that's what they did. Met with several manufacturers. We had some price points in mind that we wanted to meet or beat. And some of the manufacturers can and some of them can't. And then the committee reviewed the manufacturer's specs, features, drawings, cost estimates, tried to figure out what would work best for us and when they developed our spec. And certain things we wanted to have, which I'll tell you a little bit about here in a second. They tested all the tools, tested several different brands of rescue tools that we would like to order on the truck and have provided with the truck, decided which ones met our needs the best. And that, from all that work, they developed final specifications, and we sent it out to bid. So we just recently completed that. The bids are back. Actually, we can go to the next slide. Some of the things that we wanted to keep a short wheelbase because we've got those compact areas or those difficult areas to access, Highland Park, areas like that. It's very difficult to get a large truck in there, so the spec is for 1 foot longer than the 82 Ford. That's a very short truck. We wanted another short truck to be able to get around, be nimble in those areas so that we could get in there with no problem. So we spec'd a short truck also to park it in the garage. We need to have the room. So we've got a short wheelbase, so it's fairly nimble. We're able to access those difficult areas. 750 on the water, 1250 on the pump, has a foam system. Another nice option now, 360-degree camera for the driver and for the engineer to see all sides of the truck when the driver is operating the vehicle. 450 horsepower diesel engine to climb the hills that we need to climb, and then it's got a full complement of rescue tools and some equipment. A lot of the equipment from the 1982 Ford was purchased 5 years ago. We'll be able to reuse all that. We're also reusing all the hose, which is fairly new on the 82. We'll move that over to the new truck. So we're able to reuse a lot of the hosing equipment on the older truck that we're replacing. Our current apparatus replacement fund balance is $690 per Amy today. Working target and estimate for our purchase was $575 to $600. That was the market to get a basic truck with the features that we felt would best serve the needs of the community. We got the bids back, and the lowest bid meeting specifications was $562,836, which is a good bid, I think, for what they're offering. And that's where we're at right now, and we'll have a recommendation. We're going to go through all the bids. They're quite lengthy, and the manufacturers take exceptions to the specification, and they propose something else, and it goes back and forth. So we're going to go through, we got 4 bids. We're going to go through all the bids, see what is offered, see what meets specifications, what doesn't, what's acceptable, what isn't, and then we'll have a recommendation on December 16th. So that's where we're at with that process right now. Glad to take any questions.
Thanks. Any questions?
No.
All right, and then the last thing I wanted to touch base, Council, with you is this year it marks 25th anniversary of Officer Scott Flahive's line of duty death. I'd like to invite you to a brief ceremony on the 13th. It'll be in the afternoon. We'll get you the time when we have it nailed down for sure. And also, I think Pat covered this in a previous communication. Senator Victory's office was kind enough to propose a bill to name US 31 through Grand Haven, similar to what was done for Officer Trevor Slot from Walker. PD, if you remember, about 10 years ago, he was run over trying to apprehend some bank robbers on I-96, I think it was. And you see these signs around in different parts of the state for fallen officers. Senator Victory's office sponsored the bill, and DPW has been working with MDOT on where these signs might be placed. Sergeant Adams took me out today, showed me where MDOT had marked the spots. I think they did a great job in marking spots for these signs that are in areas, it's both in areas where there aren't any other signs. The first one, if you're coming northbound, will be on 31 northbound beside Meyer approximately, right in that area. And then the other one is on the downhill of the bridge coming southbound, and that'll be north of Adams, in an area where there's really no other signs. So pretty exciting. We hope to have Scott's mom, Lynn, here on the 13th, and hopefully we can present her with a bill naming that section of road, MDOT naming that section of road for Scott. And Lynn has been working for about 10 years or longer on the Fallen Officer Memorial in Lansing. She's been a key player in getting that done, and it finally got done and dedicated. This last July we had some of our officers went down to join her, and she is planning on being here, I believe, on the 13th in the afternoon for our ceremony. So that's that.
Okay, well, thank you, and that's a very, very fitting memorial.
Yeah, we're very appreciative of MDOT, Senator Victory's office, and DPW for knocking it out of the park. I think it's going to be really, really meaningful for Mom and the family and for our officers as well. Thank you.
Well, that was our last item on our special work session agenda, and at 7:26, I'm going to adjourn the special work session, and we'll reconvene at 7:30 for our regular council meeting. regular city council meeting for December 2nd, 2019, at 7:30 PM. Linda, would you call the roll?
Cummins,
Here?
Scott,
Here?
Fritz,
Here.
and Metza.
Here. First, we will have our invocation by Pastor Matt Schmidt. And then please remain standing afterwards for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mayor Bob, are you the new mayor?
I am.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
This is a prayer for you. It's Psalm 72. I'm just going to read Psalm 72. And if we were alive 3,000 years ago, this is the prayer that would have been prayed for the new king, for the person who, becomes the king of Israel.
I don't
you're-
aspire quite that high, but
Yeah.
thank you very much.
You're not a king, but you're kind of like the king of Grand Haven now. So we'll pray for you. And it's a prayer that's so old, it'll use some kind of outdated language. But what it really is, at its heart of hearts, is a prayer that that there would be peace in the country or in the town, that there would be justice and prosperity for everybody, from the wealthy to the poor, and that you would protect us from wolves and lions and monsters and stuff. So, anyway, sorry. Indulge me, please. Let's pray. Give the king your justice, O God, and your righteousness to a king's son. May he judge your people with righteousness and your poor with justice. May the mountains yield prosperity for the people and the hills in righteousness. May he defend the cause of the poor of the people, give deliverance to the needy, and crush the oppressor. May he live while the sun endures and as long as the moon throughout all generations. May he be like rain that falls on the mown grass, like showers that water the earth. In his days may righteousness flourish and peace abound until the moon is no more. May he have dominion from sea to sea and from the river to the ends of the earth. May his foes bow down before him and his enemies lick the dust. May the kings of Tarshish and of the isles render him tribute. May the kings of Sheba and Seba bring gifts. May all kings fall down before him, all nations give him service. Why? For he delivers the needy when they call, the poor and those who have no helper. He has pity on the weak and the needy and saves the lives of the needy. From oppression and violence he redeems their life, and precious is their blood in his sight. Long may he live. May gold of Sheba be given to him. May prayer be made for him continually, and blessings invoked for him all day and long. May there be abundance of grain in the land. May it wave on the tops of the mountains. May its fruit be like Lebanon. And may people blossom in the cities like the grass of the field. May his name endure forever, his fame continue as long as the sun. May all nations be blessed in him. May they pronounce him happy. Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who alone does wondrous things. Blessed be his glorious name forever. May his glory fill the whole earth. Amen and amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our first order of business today is to fill the vacant seat on City Council. So on this agenda item, I will be asking for, let me explain a little bit how we're going to do this, the process we're going to use, and why we're doing it this way. The charter explains that the city, when there is a vacancy on council, the sitting members of the city council shall appoint a new member to take that spot. We shall fill that vacancy from a vote of the four of us. It doesn't say that we'll go back and hold a new general election. It doesn't say that that the mayor will appoint someone and council will confirm. It says the council shall appoint. The vacant seat the seat that I vacated was not on the recent general election ballot. I didn't feel that it was appropriate or correct to go back to the ballot that was just held and use that ballot to fill the seat. I thought that we would stay true to the charter and go forward and have council appoint someone. Unfortunately, the charter is silent on the process that we would use. Recognizing that we have to make an appointment, we also have to have a process which is fair and which considers everyone who applied and wished to be on the council, and basically someone that this council feels is a good fit so we can move forward and do the business of the city. So this is not like our process for filling boards and commissions. In that process, I would make an appointment and council would do an up and down vote to confirm or deny that appointment. So this is a little bit different. We could have a process where we just simply nominate someone, vote on that person, and then maybe if that didn't work, nominate someone else, vote on that person. But I think that either favors the first person to be nominated, or you end up rejecting everyone, and then what do you do? So what I think we should do instead is look to any past practices we've had, anything we've adopted for procedures. And unfortunately, we never really adopted a procedure for this either. So then we defer to Robert's rules to look for a process. And the nearest thing I could find in this process was to take nominations, put them on a ballot, and then we vote. And so what we're going to do this evening, and I'm going to ask for a motion from council. I'll have Linda put it up there if she hasn't. Otherwise, I'll just read it.
I can't put it up there.
Okay,
I can read it, but I can't put it up there.
Well, okay, if you would read what I sent you earlier, but I'm going to ask for council to make a motion to approve following this process, which is that I will call for nominations from members of the council. We've had 4 applicants, one of whom has withdrawn. We have conducted interviews, we've reviewed resumes, we've studied this for the past week so that each council member can be familiar with the attributes of each candidate or of each applicant. So we will ask for nominations, put them on a ballot, then we will vote on this ballot. I will ask for comments as the nominations are made as to why that person is being nominated, but we'll be brief about that. We'll vote, and then if we have a majority vote for a candidate, we'll be done. If we don't, then we will discuss the matter and we'll vote again. We may have multiple ballots. Hopefully we will get through this and we will have someone who ends up with a majority. This is basically following a process in Robert's rules for filling a vacancy by ballot, even if it requires multiple ballots. Hopefully we'll get through this with a good consensus among the 4 of us as to who we would like to have join us on council. So I would like a motion, and let me
Motion to adopt this process, is that what you want?
yeah, hold on a minute. I had some
Read it
specific.
for you if you want, I have it.
Oh, okay, go ahead and read what,
This will be to receive nominations from council members to fill the vacant council seat, place all nominations on a ballot, and appoint a new council member by a majority ballot vote of the current council.
okay. So I'd like that motion adopted so that we can proceed with this process.
So moved.
Support?
Any discussion? Everybody understand what we're doing here?
I never understand anything,
Okay, well, but you go along with it.
but I'll go along.
Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Cummins,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Fritz,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes. All right, so I'm going to open the floor the floor being the 4 of us, for nominations to place on a ballot that we can vote on. So who would like to make a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Mike Dora. I think he's a lifelong resident. He's been on the planning commission for 4 years and now chairman, and I think he'd make a great candidate.
Thank you. Other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Andy Coffin. The simple fact is that he's been very involved for the last 20 years here in Grand Haven, and I think he'd be a good fit for us also.
Other nominations?
Can I add comments to
Yes, you
a
can.
nomination? Well, thank you, Mayor, honestly, for your leadership and helping us kind of go through this process here and make sure it's done fairly and properly. You put a lot of pieces out there. And really announcing that the election process is over, the seat wasn't on the ballot, and that we have to, come up with a fair process to appoint the seat. I've given this a ton of time and thought. I think all of us have in that regard. There's no doubt about it. So it's all right. I just want to kind of quickly say
Yes, please do.
my approach to this process and trying to figure out, how do we, break this down. For me, it really broke down to, what criteria should I be using, as I vote, and ultimately I wanted to be as objective as possible and believe it's important to really approach this with an open mind. And the reason for that was that we just had an election process. I got to know Jamie and Andy through that process, and I enjoyed getting to know them. I very much like them and respect them both. And Mike, I've served on the planning commission with. I've developed a relationship with him. He supported me during the campaign. And I truly believe that all of them would serve well. If we were to expand our council tonight through a charter amendment, I think that they all have be willing and to serve well and would do well in service. And no matter who's chosen tonight, honestly, I'll be honored to serve next to anybody. But so for me, the most objective way to look at this was to only consider the materials that were submitted, the experience expressed in those materials, and really the interview responses and what the answers to those questions were that we asked, and not look at past information or bring other things into it. And so certainly think Mike Dorr is certainly worthy to be on the ballot, but I second Mike's comments related to Mr. Coffin being on the ballot. He has 7 years of experience at our Musical Fountain Committee, including being the chairman. Has 11 years of experience on our DDA Promotions and Marketing Committee, including serving as chairman. Has 13 years of experience on the Grand Haven Coast Guard Festival Board from 2001 to 2014, including being president that last year. And 11 years with the C3 Spiritual Committee on their Finance Committee, including 6 years as their treasurer. He has 35 years of private sector experience. He has a master's degree. I think all of that, he showed leadership roles in the boards that he has served on, and so I think he's worthy at least, certainly to be on the ballot tonight as well. So.
Okay, thank you. I also get to make a nomination. If this were a motion or a second, I wouldn't be speaking, but that's not what this is. So I'm going to nominate Jamie Cooper to also be on the ballot. I think that Jamie would bring a good balance to the council and a good perspective, and so I would like to see her also on the ballot. With that said, then, of the four of us, we have all three of our applicants who we've interviewed will be on our ballot. And so what I'd like to do is I asked Linda to make a tentative paper ballot up. I would like us to each vote.
Out of order, wow.
Man, huh? Pretty good.
We'll turn our votes into Linda. She will post how we voted so that we know who voted for whom and where we're at. And then if we have a 3-person majority, then we're done. If not, we'll proceed.
Okay. So this first one I have is for Councilmember Cummins, and he voted for Coffin. Mayor Manetza voted for Cooper. Councilmember Scott voted for Dora. And Councilmember Fritz voted for Coffin.
All right, so this first ballot, we didn't reach majority on anyone. So I would invite council members to comment further if there is any further comment, or we can vote again. We'll repeat this process till we have a majority. So Anybody have further comment to make?
I'm ready to vote again, I guess. I don't want to add to it.
You have another set of ballots for us?
I have two more, just in
Okay,
case.
We can keep recycling them too if you're.
you probably could.
This could go on all night.
Pat's trying to find
I
something
don't,
to do.
I don't think you need to find a lot of time.
But,
Play the Jeopardy music.
I went with you this time.
Some matters still gonna read. Okay, Councilmember Fritz. Dora. Councilmember Cummins, Coffin. Mayor Manetza, Coffin. And Scott, Dora.
Well, we're getting closer. Well, at this point, I think that, is there further comment? I think that we have pretty much narrowed this down to two. Any further thoughts, or you just want to go through this again?
I'll just say, I think they're both very worthy candidates. I
Yeah.
mean, they both have great experience. Certainly Mike has great planning commission experience. I think Andy has, great city experience and service to the community as well. I think they both,
Okay.
that's all I have.
And I agree with your sentiment. If we had 3 seats to fill, I would fill them with these 3 people.
Yeah.
I think that we have 3 very good candidates here. And as they say in the Highlander movies, there can be only one. So we have to get to there. So, and this doesn't have to be a secret ballot per se. I wanted us to vote without necessarily knowing how each of us will vote. But we can vote again now, or if you want to just vote verbally, we can do that.
He's got one more ballot yet.
Got
Okay,
one more set.
send them around.
Give Pat some exercise.
Yes.
Oh, man, nomination this time.
Decisive. Body.
Councilmember Scott, Dora. Mayor Manetza, Coffin.
I didn't realize it was on the screen.
Cummins,
up there.
Coffin. Fritz, Dora.
Well, it didn't change anything, did it?
No.
Okay, so. So should we discuss? Should we discuss the candidates individually?
They're both really.
They are very good. We just need to come to a consensus. If we are going to settle on one or the other, we have to decide who it's going to be. If we can do this verbally, or we can go through another round of votes. I, for one, would be willing to switch my vote from Coffin to Dora if that's where it's going to be.
I'm gonna stick with Mike myself. I'm gonna be with Denny because it's a lifelong resident and also being on a planning commission and just city values. I think I myself personally, I've known Mike for a long, long time. It's my own personal thing. It's what I shouldn't be, but, and I like Andy a lot, so. it-
All right.
Yeah,
They're both worthy of the job. Andy has his heart in the town. Mike has his heart in the town.
I think they all do.
I think they all
Has their heart in the town. Everybody
Absolutely.
does. Every run for council was fantastic.
Right, we just need to make a decision this evening, so.
I'll say that I very much gotten to know Mike very well, except in my work in the planning commission. Like, being on the planning commission is my experience, great experience to become a member of council. I've obviously experienced that myself. Luckily, the voters agreed. So I'd be willing to support Mike tonight as well, so we can move forward and come together and get the work done.
As will I. So I think that, should we just want to call our names, or you want to send another
I
piece
think
of paper?
maybe just a typical motion with support would suffice.
Okay, then let's have a motion and a support.
Well, the way that,
I-
the way that the resolution read, you said you were going to place nominations on the ballot and appoint a new council member by a majority ballot vote. So if you want to go with the resolution you made earlier, I'd say do a ballot.
Do you want to circle your preferred candidate this time?
Yeah, and I was fairly specific about the language of of the motion.
I'll change my vote.
Yeah, you would, wouldn't you?
I'll change my vote.
Yeah, let's put a fractional vote. Yeah, the resolution, or the motion we adopted when we started this process was to use the vote to appoint the new.
Ready?
Yes,
Okay. Scott is Dora. Manetza is Coffin.
what?
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. Dora, sorry. It's like, didn't you say we're gonna switch? I was
Recycle
looking
these.
at the X instead of the circle, sorry.
Recycled them.
Cummins, Dora. Fritz, Dora.
All right, Mr. Dora is appointed to the city council. And our next order of business is to swear in the new city council member. Linda, do you need anything else from us on the first part of this?
No, I do not.
Good. It's been 20 years since we've appointed somebody to be on city council. It was in August of 1999. So we're a little rusty at this, but that's our process.
Raise your right hand. I'll just read the oath and you say I do. I, Michael Dora, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of a city council member in and for the city of Grand Haven, county of Ottawa, and state of Michigan according to the best of my ability.
I do.
Go have a seat.
Now that you're on the job, you may have a seat up here. If you, in all fairness, if you weren't prepared for this evening's meeting, you wouldn't have to participate, but you certainly are welcome to.
You know me.
I
I'm
do.
Prepared.
I assume that everyone came here prepared. And thank you very much to the other applicants. And we had a very good field. It was a very difficult decision. And I think all of you would have been excellent council members. And I would encourage you to stay involved, and there'll be another election coming up in 2 years, and jump in. So, thank you very much. Okay. So, there are no presentations this evening?
No, sir.
Okay. So now we move on to the approval of the consent and regular agendas. Changes to the agendas?
I have none, Your Honor.
I would like to propose one. I'd like to propose that we add the appointment of Ryan Cummins to the NORA board.
Do you want to do that next on the agenda then? We normally do appointments before we do the,
Okay, well, since it didn't make the agenda, we can, but we need a vote of 4 people to
Right.
make this happen. Yeah, we can do that next.
Okay.
I have no other changes.
So we need a motion.
I need a motion to approve the amended agenda.
So moved.
Make that motion.
Second.
Scott,
Yes.
Fritz,
Yes.
Dora,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes. So now, we would normally do that before the consent agenda.
Yeah.
We're a little out of order just because of the nature of things, so.
So now we need the motion to actually appoint Ryan to the NORA board, because you just made the amendment before.
Right, that was the amendment to the agenda. Now we need a motion to appoint Ryan Cummins to the NORA board.
I'd like to make that motion.
Support?
Fritz,
Yes.
Dora,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes. Okay, congratulations. You have a new job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another added duty.
Okay, at this point, we have a call to the audience.
You want to swear Ryan in to the NORA board?
Oh, yes. Keep me honest here.
Or come on, come over here. Yeah. I, Ryan Cummins, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the NORA Board in and for the city of Grand Haven, county of Ottawa, and state of Michigan, according to the best of my ability.
Shake the hand of one of the employees right off the bat.
All right, at this point, we have the first of two calls to the audience. First, this is one of two opportunities. At this time, members of the audience may address council on any item, whether on the agenda or not. Those addressing council will come to the podium, speak directly to the mayor, must identify themselves by name and address, will be limited to 3 minutes of speaking time. Council will hear all comments for future consideration, will not have a response at this time.
Tom Garzaloni, Pinewood Place. I live 1500 South Ferry Street. I was here 2 weeks ago. I requested that the star or the nativity scene and the cross be reinstated, and I brought you information on Supreme Court decisions and Circuit Court decisions which show that it's not unconstitutional to put our cross back up in a nativity scene. What do I have to do to get it on the agenda?
Sir, the city at this point in time has no intention of taking this issue back up, so it will not be addressed by council.
When will it be taken up?
It will not be.
In other words, we will never have the cross or nativity scene again.
Well, at this point in time, there's no plans by this council to take the issue up or discuss it.
God help us.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Mike Port, 621 North Fifth Street. Don't know if you've taken a drive down Sheldon Road, North Fifth Street in the last couple days, or several times throughout this summer. But if you had, you'll notice the road's been closed due to water over the road. This water is coming up from the current storm sewer system because the river's high. But the problem being, we don't have any kind of a shut-off or a backflow preventer or anything on that sewer, so that when the river comes up, last Wednesday we had that strong wind, and the road flooded over, filling my crawl space with 2 feet of water down on the corner of North Fifth and Adams. There's many things that coincide with this. The apartments across the way. If it rains hard, the water runs down the street into my yard, straight through the handicap accessible sidewalk, never bypasses the curb and runs right in. Half dozen times this summer, we've had to have the road blocked, closed. They put a water over road sign. Cars drive through it so fast it puts water on my deck. So we need to do something about these storm sewers. There has to be a remedy to preventing the water from coming back up them. We have to pump from them. We have to lower the water that's in them. Somehow, we have to help the people on the north side of town. The last 2 weeks, or the last 2 times happened in a week. I mean, just before Thanksgiving, we had a foot of water in the yard. Happy to show you a video of that. I did email it to Pat today. That there's a link to be able to see the video and the water flowing in. So somehow we have to come up with a way to remedy this. I guess I wanted to make it clear to the council that there's plenty of people down there that need help. And this isn't the beach eroding. I mean, I feel for those people too, but I'm not complaining because the lake level's high. I'm not complaining because the river level's high. I'm complaining because the storm sewers are allowed to back up into the roads. And that's a problem, especially when it goes over the curbs, fills the driveways, runs down the sidewalks, and fills crawl spaces.
Okay. Well, thank you. And yes, we are aware of this one. It's on our radar.
Jeremy Swiftney with Grand Haven Main Street. First, I'd like to say congratulations to Mr. Dora on your appointment. And secondly, we have 2 events coming up, not this Saturday, but next on December 14th. We start the morning off with Shopping Jam, which is a progressive sale up to 30% off items from 8 to 9 a.m. at many of the shops around the Grand Haven Main Street district, from 9 to 10 a.m. up to 25% off, followed by Santa in Centertown from 11 to 2 p.m. There's going to be a Santa Claus downtown in Centertown. We're going to have live reindeer, and many different shops are going to be having sales during that time as well. So I wanted to make sure to invite all of you and everybody watching at home to come on down and have a great time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Rick Grassman, 212 South Harbor Drive. As you may or may not have surprised, I have the new Grand Haven watchdog. I've taken that upon myself. And I have a few comments I'd like to share this evening. Have you been past the Dairy Street project and seen for yourself where the orange pinkish dots are depicting where the building will be? If you have not, I would caution you to do that. With that being said, I've engaged in an architect and drawing site plans to bring my building up to the sidewalk as well. In the past, I looked at that when I remodeled a few years back and said I wasn't going to do it. It was available to me at the time, but I felt it was wrong for the community. But apparently the city thinks that's the good thing for the community, so I am going to be putting my building up to the sidewalk in 3 stories as well, and it will have a 0 setback. My main comment that I'm asking for tonight, and I've asked Councilman Cummins this before, is how did we go from having a 25-foot clear vision corner and removing it because it wasn't a safety issue? That was put in the 25 clear vision for a safety. So as I pull up to the corner, I can see. So now we take one of the busiest pedestrian intersections in all of Grand Haven and we remove that so a building can come up to the sidewalk, not 3 feet back, not 5 feet back, but to the sidewalk. And it's removed under the, or it's being able to move there under the guise of removing the clear vision corner. As I quizzed your city planner on that over and over, she said, well, there's conflicting ordinances. I've had all kinds of developers come to me and tell me that this doesn't work. We have conflicting ordinances. I ask you, have any of you gone through the calculations and the formulas for the clear vision corner and your build to zone? There's no conflict in that. I ran numerous corners. I did all the drawings for numerous corners. There wasn't conflict one. Every one of those corners could be developed. And the guise of, I've talked to numerous developers, no, she really talked to 10 Kate and Groteis. I have not been able to find others that she talked to. You know, as I go through those calculations, and I'd ask you guys to look back at them. It's over and done now, but it allows me to come to the corner.
The crazy thing is, that all came up in December of 2018. It was brought to your attention in January. An amendment to the ordinances was brought to you in January of 2018. You signed off it, and magically February 12, there's a plan that's completely 100% done, site plan with no clear vision corner surfaces, allowing a building to be on the corner. All that in just really a couple of weeks. The funny things about FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, allows me to get a lot of documents that a lot of people don't ever look at. With that being said, Jennifer Howland, to the Dairy Street Group, I'm trying to find ways to interpret things really all in your favor. Another text message from a council member on the city of Grand Haven referring to me. We could do this while lightly sticking it to him. Really? These are things, I have hundreds of these things. Really, these are things that goes on in the city of Grand Haven. Nobody has looked at calculations, done calculations on clear vision corners. The safety issue isn't an issue. That's all I got to say, give you something to think about.
Okay.
Maybe I got too much time on my hands some days, huh?
All right, well, thank you.
Have a good night, thank you.
Who else? If no one else wishes to address council, we will move on. I believe we are ready for the consent agenda.
This is to approve the special council meeting, closed session, and special work session, and regular council meeting minutes of November 18th, 2019. Approve the bills memo in the amount of $805,768.62. Recognize the Tri-Cities Kiwanis as a nonprofit organization operating in the community for the purpose of obtaining a charitable gaming license, and authorize the financial institutions for city investments and depository services for calendar year 2020.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Did the appointment of Ryan to NORA board belong here as well, or just where we dealt with
Oh,
it?
where we put it.
Okay.
We've already voted on it.
Yes, we did. All right. Any
I'll
motion on the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Okay. Questions and comments on the consent agenda, any of these items? Hearing none, I think we're ready to vote.
Dora?
Yes.
Cummins?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes. Okay, ready for new business. Please read the first item.
Sure. First item is to approve an agreement with Grand Haven Charter Township to provide building plan reviews, permitting, and inspections for the city of Grand Haven until a full-time building official is hired, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents. The administration recommends approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved. And support.
Okay, motion by Cummins, second by Fritz.
Thank you.
Comments?
Kind of self-explanatory what it is. We're in need of a building inspector, so we have to go somewhere. So
Yeah.
it's thankful that the township is willing to partner up with us a little bit, or at least let us partner up with them. So that's a good idea.
Yeah, another collaboration.
Yep.
Any other comments?
I think the contract really lays out the process, expectations, and also work quite well. It's really detailed on this is where all the paperwork's going on both ways, and this is the procedures and steps, and so that's quite detailed. So I was glad to see that. At first glance, the rates, I'm like, well, they seem a little higher than maybe past practice, but I see, we're not paying for some of the transportation expenses and some of those extra costs because they are an independent contractor. I'm glad to see the city attorney has reviewed this and approved the agreement, especially with, AG opinions that are out there related to some of this. And I appreciate that the focus on customer service is really maintained to try to make this seamless, but thank you to Grand Haven Township for really being a good neighbor and helping us out here.
I want to thank the township also for pitching in and helping us out here. And it did appear to be that they were maybe interested in doing this on a longer term also, if we found that the route to go.
Okay, but I believe we are required, by law, to have our own building inspector. And it's a service that we typically tend to offer ourselves as opposed to going outside the community to offer. So we will be actively looking for a building inspector. If you know one out there looking for a job, we have an opening. But yes, this is a fairly important function, and it should be part of our city administrative offerings. In the meantime, though, it's good that we have a backup plan, and we do work back and forth with neighboring communities to provide these services, so there's no break in service to the community. If there are no other comments, I believe we're ready to vote.
Cummins?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Dora?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes. Next item.
Next item is to provide an incentive match to Winterfest Grand Haven Lighthouse Conservancy fundraising activities scheduled for the weekend of January 24th through 27th, 2020, in the amount of $15,000 to be drawn from the Artifact Fund at the Grand Haven Area Community Foundation. The administration recommends approval.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion by Fritz, second by Cummins.
And this is a good thing. We've done it before to kickstart off fundraisers. This is a good way of saying that the city is actually putting some skin into it. So I'm looking forward to it and finally seeing our lighthouses getting complete. So thank you to the Lighthouse Conservancy for coming forward and working hard at this. Dave. Thank you.
If you're gonna speak, you have to come up here and tell us who you are.
Sure.
Well, about this, not,
Also.
about this, not about just something.
Not something, how about the lighthouses? Mr. Mayor, congratulations, and thank you for having me here to speak about the lighthouse on behalf of the Lighthouse Conservancy. My name is Dave Carpin. I live on Apple Street in Grand Haven Township, and I am the president of the Grand Haven Lighthouse Conservancy and have been for 10 years. As you know, the city has acquired the lighthouses 10 years ago, created a 501c3 called the Grand Haven Lighthouse Conservancy, and we raise funds to support that iconic historical structure that you have on the South Pier. We've recently, we started off raising with a $100,000 grant from the Community Foundation, matched that, raised a couple more $100,000, did a historic structure report, which was a requirement for you obtaining the lighthouse. They identified lead paint and things like that need to be removed. We raised the money at no taxpayer's expense to do that project. It was completed. You remember the tarps out on the lighthouse and all those things. This historic structure report is also a blueprint of deficiencies and what needs to be done to the lighthouse. And we're following that blueprint by raising funds along the way. This is our second fundraiser. We call it the Inside Out fundraiser because we hope to bring the inside of the lighthouse out to the public. And we appreciate your support and your consideration.
Okay.
Any questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
So what is the Artifact Fund at the Community Foundation that was referenced?
About 15 years ago, we started a fund at the Community Foundation called the Artifact Fund, which during good budget years, we contribute from the city general fund to the Artifact Fund, with the idea being we had accepted all these artifacts over decades. You know, we had trains and planes and boats and
Automobiles, oh.
yeah, and we were you know, musical fountains and town clocks and all these things, but we never assigned any capital to take care of those things. So we decided, you know, if we can each year, the city council looks at the budget and transfers a certain amount of money to the Artifact Fund at the Community Foundation. So then in the event, you know, it generates interest. I could tell you the exact amount, but I think we're between $200,000 and $300,000 in there now. We'd like it to keep growing so that future generations can literally live off that interest, so that the money's there to take care of all these artifacts. And the past city councils, I don't know what the current one's gonna do, but the general feeling has been, let's not take on any more old assets or artifacts. That the lighthouses are the one exception. You know, that was kind of a critical thing, and so far, no cost to the taxpayers, as Mr. Carpin said. The Conservancy's been very busy doing fundraisers, and this year's more of that. So if we're able to draw money from the Artifact Fund, that's in the event, you know, we'll check with Amy and see if we can afford to pull money out of one or another budget. If we can't, the money at the Artifact Fund is always there. So, and it's matching. You know, so dollar for dollar, hopefully you get something back, and it is a city-owned asset, so it is your responsibility to take care of it, so it's really all good.
And the Lighthouse Conservancy Fund would be what potentially matches this potential grant We just applied for this grant, right?
Correct.
To do some of this work, so, okay. No, it looks like they have an excellent track record of raising money, especially with matches, so I'm definitely in support.
All right, anything?
I support it. I think they're an important part of our town.
Any comment? Okay. No, and I think that this is something we've talked about doing, offering the support. We own the lighthouses, so I think it's kind of, yes?
I just want to get something Ryan kind of referred to, and for those listening at home or watching on the World Wide Web, in 2016, the Lighthouse Conservancy came and asked for a match. You granted $10,000, they raised $400,000. So that's a pretty good kickstart, as Mr. Fritz put it. In 2017, the Catwalk came and asked for $10,000, which you granted, and they raised $1,100,000. So $10,000 from the city, $1.1 million from fundraising. The Reimagine project, $15,000. They raised $500,000, $500,000 and built that playground. And then last year, the Sound Investment, they asked for $15,000. They raised $150,000 to put the new sound system in the musical fountain. So it really does inspire your community when the city council steps out as a leader and says, we're going to put the first $15,000 down. I think others feel a little more comfortable supporting the cause. And it's proven effective the last 4 years. So Mr. Carpin said, can we do that again? I said, you can ask. It's up to city council to say yea or nay.
No, we're investing in our assets. And when you comment that we have a lot of artifacts and no capital funds to support them, it's been generally true. We've accepted things and take the responsibility for things, the tipple and some of the other artifacts. And then we have sometimes struggle, sometimes fundraise, whatever we can do to take care of these, to preserve them, to bring them back into a good, long-lasting condition. And if what it takes is for council to put in some seed money to help and to inspire others to donate, excellent to do. We do own the lighthouses. They are ultimately our responsibility. We appeal to the public because these are really held in trust for the people of Grand Haven. So I'm also in support of this. If there are no other comments, we can vote.
Scott?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Dora?
Yes.
Cummins?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes. Next item.
Next item is to approve the Kiwanis Santa House placement in, no, that's not, that's from the last
I
time.
think you're off.
I'm looking at the wrong one. Sorry, second.
Yeah, like I read that one.
I remember that.
I don't know what happened to the other one. That's weird.
Shall I read it?
Thank you. Wonder if it's, I skipped. Ah, got it. This is to approve a letter of authorization to permit the Board of Light and Power to authorize the purchase of capacity by Michigan Public Power Agency on behalf of Grand Haven from June 1st, 2025 through May 31st, 2040, capacity up to 8,000 kilowatts in the maximum amount of $3.70 per kilowatt per month pursuant to Section 14.3B in the city charter, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the necessary documents. The Board of Light and Power and the administration recommend approval.
Can I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion by Fritz, a second by Scott. See, Mr. Dave Walters is in the audience. I would invite him to come and explain this item to us.
Good evening, Council. My name is Dave Walters. I'm the General Manager of the Board of Light and Power here in town. Before you tonight is a very small portion of a much larger portfolio that the Board of Light and Power is building as we move forward. Just to report first, we have about 60 days left of coal on the island. So in about 60 days, 60 to 80 days, the power plant will burn its last tonnage of coal and will be shut down. In its absence, we are beginning to build purchases. If we don't purchase in advance, we buy on the short-term market. So what's happening is, to avoid putting ourselves on a short-term market, we buy out longer blocks of power. This is one of them. We actually buy three things in the power markets. We buy capacity, we buy energy, and we buy transmission. So this is a capacity purchase, does not come with any energy. It's just a planning purchase
to assure that we have adequate capacity to meet our obligations to the marketplace. We need to buy about 75 megawatts of capacity every year. This is about 8 megawatts or 8,000 kilowatts of capacity, very, very small portion of what we need, but it's a very long purchase. So purchases over 10 years go before you. This is a 15-year purchase, so the board has approved this, and it's contingent on your approval under section 14.3 of the charter. Any purchase over 10 years comes to you, and as you know, I've bought renewable purchases before you, other purchases. This is called a capacity purchase, and what MPPA has done is aggregated. It's going to be about a 35 megawatt block of power that they're going to buy on the open market. We're going to get 8 megawatts of that. The other members of MPPA will get the remainder. What they do is they go out and get an indicative price. That's the $3.70 that you see out there. But what will happen early next week, all of the approvals will come in from the various communities that are going to participate in this transaction. If you approve of it, we will enter that block, and then they will go out and actually bid for that block of power, receive bids for it, and we believe it'll be less than the $3.70. So that $3.70 is an authorization that we give as a city that if the price comes below that, MPPA pulls the trigger and buys the full 35 megawatts. So that's what you're kind of, I think at some point in time, particularly given the new council, we probably need to have some sort of longer discussion about how we do these transactions and what we do and how that happens. But tonight, as I pointed out in my explanation, it's about 1.8% of an annual purchase that you're doing here tonight. It's about $350,000 a year of about a $20 million a year purchase. But it's over 15 years, it comes to a big number. So that's what we're doing here tonight is we're just buying that block from, it's actually, 5 years out now. We're buying a block for 15 years, and it'll be blended into that portfolio of purchases that we're buying. So that I'll answer any questions.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that, and I think that any better understanding we might have through discussion, through your relaying information to us about what it is we're doing and why, that will be welcome. And maybe not tonight, but yes.
Yeah, I think it would probably be worthwhile to have maybe a joint board council meeting at some point in time in the next few months, given the turnover that we've had, plus just kind of our change in doing business. We've been buying power through the Michigan Public Power Agency for 20 plus years, 25 years probably plus. So it's not something new, but it is something new for us to buy as much as we're buying. So we're kind of changing from being primarily a generator of power to purchasing a lot. So it'd probably be good for both the council and the board to sit down and just discuss this process. I've highlighted some of the contracts that are already in place. The contracts, really there's no contract being signed. The contracts are already signed. The framework is already there. We're just adding in what we call a power purchase commitment into those agreements that we already have in place. So really all that's needed for this transaction to occur is for you to give me your approval, and then I sign that document that you have there, that letter of authorization telling MPPA, yes, we want to participate in it, and then they go out and buy it on our behalf.
Okay, and we have traded resolutions now, I think once or twice, about communication between our boards.
Yes.
And we will probably get that all straightened out, and we'll be communicating on a regular basis. So
right, and I think
as that moves forward, I think that it would help, you would make us better understand this process.
Yeah, and I think what we'd like to do, again, have that meeting, but we'd also like to come before you probably on a more regular basis so
Absolutely.
that we can update you on what's going on and we don't drop things on you as we've been told we've been doing in the past. So let's try to avoid that. We'll try to keep you up to date more, and my goal would be to try to have some sort of report quarterly. And I think that's what the board is initiated, some sort of quarterly report where I just come before you and tell you what we're doing, what's coming up, what's happened, and that way we all stay on the same page, particularly as we move forward. There's going to be pretty substantial things happening at the Board of Light and Power in the next year to 3 years, so it's good that we're all on the same page.
All right, well, we'll let you and Mr. McGinnis work out proposed meeting schedule and we'll get together. Now, I wanted to ask you another question though. We have before us a resolution, which outlines all the elements that we need to approve, and that's what you see on the board and on our agenda. You offered us some alternative language, which when I reviewed it, it appeared to say mostly the same thing, except to have more background information built into it. So for our purposes, we need to authorize this, and the rest of the material that you were offering as part of a resolution seemed to be not necessarily extraneous.
The primary reason I put it there is the last sentence of your resolution here suggests that the mayor and clerk will execute the necessary documents. Again, there's really no necessary documents for the clerk and the mayor to execute, and really the only thing that needs to happen is that letter of authorization needs to be signed, and under our contracts, whether it's right, wrong, or otherwise, I'm the only one that can sign it. So that's the only really significant change, and that's a result of our contracts that we have in place. I'm what's called the designated member authorized representative. So that's the person that, if you look on that letter, at the bottom of the letter, it says member authorized representative. That is me by contract. So
all right.
That's the only really significant issue. The rest of it just explains the process a little bit better, but that's why, the primary reason why I suggested the alternative language.
Okay, well, I didn't see that particular explanation in your words, so that's why I asked.
Right.
Would there be, from the city manager's perspective, would there be a reason to keep that phrase in there?
It doesn't matter, it's already in there, you can take it out, we often have it in there in case there are documents, it authorizes you to sign necessary documents if there were some. If there aren't any,
if there are no necessary documents, then I've already signed them.
Right.
Because they don't exist.
You did your job.
Okay, so.
But you can take it out, it's irrelevant.
I guess I would.
So you could just, anything after the word charter, you could delete.
I agree, Bob. There's no necessity to take it out. There is no, again, I'm just pointing it out. There is no necessary document. So I just didn't want people to think, well, where are these documents that I'm supposed to sign? There is none.
Well, it's somewhat, in this sense, it's somewhat phrased in the negative, in the sense that if there are no necessary documents, then authorizing them is pretty simple because there's nothing to authorize. So it makes no difference.
Fine, it's fine with me.
I guess we would leave this language, unless someone on council would like to make changes.
Sure. Since everybody else is shaking their head no,
Okay.
I'll say yes.
Mike, what would you like to do?
Because it's actually the authorized, it's not so much the document we're signing, that document, it's just actually our process that we've always had here is that after we get done, it'd be our document saying, yes, we okayed this transaction.
Yes, so it's standard language for us.
Yes.
Yes,
That is
and
just standard language.
That's why it shows up here.
Yes.
There again, if there is no such document, it's fine to have it here.
It'll be just our document that we signed saying yes for him to go ahead and move forward.
Okay, well, that would just be our vote.
There you go.
Anything else? Comments?
It's good to me.
Brian, you're thinking.
Well, I just want to make sure I fully understand all this capacity versus the actual energy, and I'm no expert on this by any means, and you're the expert here, right? So definitely correct me if I'm wrong. So when we talk about energy loads, we're talking about the demand and energy side. That's accurate? And that demand is kind of what the customers use at any point, and energy is what they use over time. So we have to have the capacity to meet the expected demand. Is that we're trying to meet expected demand, or at least have to have enough to meet?
Yeah, again, this is probably best done in a broader context, but going into any year to participate in the marketplace, a utility has to prove that it has adequate capacity, either owned or under contract, to meet their peak demand. In other words, that 1 hour in the middle of the summer when all the air conditioners are turned on, we have to have capacity under contract to meet that load, plus what we call a reserve margin. All right, so the balancing authority, which is an organization called MISO, says what our capacity is required going into a given year and what that reserve margin is. And then we have to either build generation or we have to contract a certain amount of capacity. Now, with that capacity comes no energy. In other words, there's no kilowatt hours. I call it a ticket to the dance. All you're doing is buying your way into the marketplace for the next year, all right? That you have capacity that somewhere, either somebody else has taken that off your plate, and in this particular instance, someone else is taking that amount of capacity off our plate, and they're saying they will provide that capacity to us. And it's their responsibility then to line up a generator or something for this particular price. So if you have surplus, you typically sell capacity in this fashion so that you can make some additional money on that capacity going into a given year, but this doesn't come with any energy. In other words, the kilowatt hours that you actually purchase that we purchase on your behalf when you're using it, that's another charge and under a different contract. So this is just more of a planning element going into a year. So for 15 years, we will have this particular item as a capacity entitlement for Grand Haven through MPPA, as well as a bunch of other resources, so that will add up to that peak load plus that reserve margin. So every year we have to do that. If we don't have it at a given point in time, what happens is they have an auction, and the surplus cities or the surplus utilities put stuff into the auction, and we have to buy it out. So if we don't go in advance and buy, we have to go to the auction at the last minute and buy it, which is not where you want to be. You don't want to be forced to buy. You want to buy it in advance.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing here. That's the capacity component. The energy component is other transactions that will come before you that will be on a instead of a kilowatt, it'll be on a kilowatt hour basis. In other words, the amount of capacity over a given year gives you that time component of buying energy, and that's a different transaction.
Thank you for that. And so, regardless of what we end up deciding about local generation, how much capacity this may provide in this overall formula, you know, the Burns McDonnell report, all the recommendations, we were going to have to do these purchases anyway in some fashion, up to it.
Yeah, the maximum amount of capacity that we would put in is likely what we discussed is about 36 megawatts. That's probably higher. So if we have a 75 megawatt capacity requirement, some of that may be fulfilled by a local resource that we build in the future, but it won't be the full amount. So we will still have to have some additional resources that we buy from others to complete that entire picture.
So we're buying it now at a better price, at least now, than what.
And just for instance, if we were to go out and buy a resource today, because there's surplus in the market, that $3.70, about the cheapest resource that we could build right now on a KW per month basis would be somewhere around $8. So the $3.70 reflects surplus in the market. So as that cost starts going up, there's more incentive to build. Right now, there's more incentive to buy because the price is much lower than the price that we can build at.
Yeah, that's almost, what, 50 to 60%.
That make sense?
Yeah, I mean, that's almost 50 to 60% lower. So is there, I saw in our packet here, so it's concerned that obviously some of the surplus is going to dry up. I mean, are there going to be potentially other opportunities in the near future that we can make some other large capacity purchases like this?
That's what I said. I mean, right now, the power prices are as low as they've, both on the energy and on the capacity side, as low as I've seen them in my 30 years in this business. So it's a buyer's marketplace right now. In that market, it's a good time to be buying forward, locking up some of those prices. Now, what we always try to do I try to talk to our board about it, try to talk to council about kind of spreading that risk, not saying, oh geez, it's never going to get any lower, let's buy it all, but we buy these small portions of the portfolio on a spread out basis, so that and that's what I said in my email, this is a time where MPPA, because prices are low, they're our agent in the marketplace, and they're saying, you know, you might want to be buying a little bit more now, because the prices are very, very low. Now, they fluctuate all the time. It's like buying in the stock market. When you buy commodities, you're essentially You know, sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low. It's good to spread that out, kind of dollar cost averaging, you know, spread it out over multiple purchases, but this is a good time to be buying.
Good. Nope, I like that. It's locked in for multiple years. And I appreciate you bringing it up. Hopefully get both boards together and kind of get some updates, see where we're at, and I think that'd be fantastic. So.
Yep. Any other comments?
Good.
Good. I'm good as well. Appreciate all the clarity and the new information, and
thank you.
This is the resolution we're voting on. Okay, I think we're ready to vote.
Fritz?
Yes.
Dora?
Yes.
Cummins?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes. Okay. We have no further new items, no unfinished business. We're ready for a report by City Council. Who would like to begin?
Jingle Bell Parade.
Okay.
It's coming up this Saturday. Everybody be ready for it. Hopefully we get some decent weather for it.
Yeah.
That's all I got to report.
Okay. Anything?
Well, I went to the airport board meeting, and they have every hangar that can take a plane has a plane except for one right now. So we're at capacity with the airport, and that's a good thing out there. And Earl's just doing a fantastic job out there. He's making that airport just as profitable as he can, and we're selling more gas than we ever did. And so the airport's just humming along, and for where it was a few years ago before Earl came on board, he's increased the amount of gas we sell. He increased the amount of planes we have on the field, and the activities out in the airport are probably 10 times or more than what they were when before he started. So, and I look at this. Thank Earl for all he's done. I think he's done a great job out there, and I look forward to seeing what he's got coming up for the next year, because he always seems to add something. Something's always new out there, and I think the airport's out there right now is booming. So I'm just glad we have Earl on board, and I appreciate him, and I appreciate the board that's out there that all work together really well, and the airport's just clicking right now. So that's all I have.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dennis.
Ryan?
Yeah, I attended the Light Night event. Had a fantastic turnout down there. Great job to the Main Street team, and kudos to the DPW staff that put up all the lights and wrapped the poles, and everything looks great downtown there. I was even eating at one of the restaurants, and the carolers were coming inside, so it was a great event. Attended the Planning Commission meeting. They set a public hearing on medical marijuana facilities, allowing various types of medical marijuana licenses in various zoning districts, including provisioning centers. So the first of a few opportunities that the public will have to come and speak related to potential medical marijuana ordinance. They also made a recommendation for approval related to the Jackson Flat Stanco property case. So I anticipate that will be coming to us soon. Looks like there's a lot of moving parts to that development to be considered and discussed. And then attended the ad hoc parking committee. I was able to get up to speed on what they've been discussing and its purpose. And so yeah, that's all I have.
Okay, thanks. Mike, your first chance to do a council report.
I also attended the light night, and it was a really great turnout. Saw Mike and his wife down there. Saw Mayor wandering around. It was nice to see all the stores busy and the streets packed. I'll help Ryan out. I also attended the NORA board meeting.
Fantastic.
Help you out. They had a real excellent millage proposal presentation that you probably might want to watch that and catch up on that, but they're really stepping it up to go with their millage proposal coming up here, so that was a really good presentation.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I did some of these same things. I attended the Planning Commission meeting. I heard the discussion on the Jackson Flats project. I also heard similar discussion at the DDA meeting, and it's been through the EDC board, so pieces of this project are being approved little chunks by different committees, and they're kind of coming together for us. We still have a vacation of a street to discuss, and overall approval of a project will be discussed here. And I'm not sure exactly when we'll see it here, but as some of these boards and commissions weigh in on it, it gets closer to us. And I don't know what else is left for legwork on the part of the developer. But each of the boards and commissions is doing their job and doing their piece of it. I just want to make sure that when it does come to the city council, that we are looking at the big picture, the best fit, and the future of the city, how that's going to work for us. So that's Planning Commission. I attended a affordable housing discussion at Loudoun Library on Thursday the 21st. That was, I know that the Human Relations Commission was involved in that. It was presented by a group from Holland. But they showed a video, and they had a little discussion, quite a lengthy question and answer about the nature of affordable housing, the size and scope of the problem, how we get our arms around these things. And it was a good awareness session for me. I attended the parking committee meeting as well. Sounds like Ryan and I are getting into it on fairly late in the discussion, but I still think there's room for us to have input. Light night, I was there wandering around, as you say.
Wandering, yes.
Hopefully I didn't look too aimless. And I very much enjoyed doing the reviewing the council candidates, and very much appreciate their participation, their interest, reading the resumes and the accomplishments of people who come before us and wish to join us and be part of this process. In the interviews, I thought all three candidates interviewed well, sounded good, and I was sincere when I said that if I'd had three seats to fill up here, I would have had three people to fill them. So I think that the city was well served however it came out, and I hope that everyone stays involved and helps to contribute to the future of the city. And that is all I've got. So report by city manager.
All I had tonight is just to remind you of the Christmas parade, the Jingle Bell Parade this Saturday, and then also we have the city Christmas party right before that, I think is 4 o'clock? 4:30. 4:30.
That was 4 to 5:30. Oh, yeah,
4 to 5:30. And then you go, so if you have time to come by the community center and join the employees that show up, you know, there's some pizza. Yep. Okay. Crafts, I know crafts. And then everybody goes out and does the parade and has a great time. So I hope to see all of you on Saturday night.
Yeah, very good. I'll be in Lansing most of that day. I have 2 hours of presentations at a Science Olympiad clinic, and then I'll be here for the parade. So.
Okay, and then also goal setting.
Goal setting, yes.
I don't know if everybody's available next Monday night, December the 9th. If so, we'll get something set up, probably about 5 o'clock, if that's doable. So we'll have a little something to eat. It is a public meeting, so we'll be announcing the location and get with you as far as menu. It'll probably be some sandwiches or something pretty simple.
Okay.
And plan on spending a couple, 3 hours, and if we need to regroup again, we schedule another session at the end of that session if we think we need more time.
Well, if you would make sure that our newer members here have access to minutes, notes, whatever we had from our last goal setting meeting, so they get a flavor of how this is done. And we generally go around the group and offer ideas for goals, and then kind of winnow them down to a few. I've always been a proponent on having fewer, broader goals, and others have liked to have more and more specific goals, and I guess what we end up with is a combination thereof. So, I'll give you something to think about for the next week. Okay, anything else?
That's all.
All right, second call to the audience. Again, at this time, members of the audience may address council on any item, whether on the agenda or not. Those addressing council come to the podium, speak directly with the mayor, identify yourselves by name and address. Limit yourselves to 3 minutes speaking time. We'll hear all comments for future consideration and not have a response at this time. After I read all that, somebody please come forward. Seeing none, we are adjourned.
Well, you're welcome.